Coming up on the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
How much Grenache is over in Napa?
It's a grain of sand on a beach in terms of what's planted.
Okay.
Let's be real.
Yeah, there's a ton of Cab.
Yeah.
You got Merlot, you got Cab Franc.
Chardonnay.
It's still a tiny bit. Okay, Nebbiolo, great. So it's from Italy. It's a Barolo. It's Italian. No, it's not. It's actually from California. The strong acid and moderate tannins balance and support the less assertive flavors. They're giving props to the less assertive flavors. Are they adjusting the courts at the All England Lawn and Tennis Club for pickleball? The next Wimbledon will
Bury
be
me in a
pickleball.
shallow grave when they do that.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about because it almost sounds dirty.
And now, the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
The cell phones have been silenced. The wine is poured. I hope you'll sip along with us for that in-the-room feeling. And just like that, the podcast begins. The Tall Mike Wine Podcast. The wine podcast that's not all about wine. If you've ever been stuck in one of those all about wine conversations, you understand why. The wine podcast like no other. Spanning the globe to 77 countries on 6 continents and in 48 of these United States. From Moses Lake, Washington to Perrysburg, Ohio. From West Islip, New York to Laredo, Texas, and wherever you are. If you're a childless cat lady or if you prefer dogs, I'm glad you found the podcast. I'm Mike Stone, your host, just back from a hiatus. Not really a planned hiatus, just vacation that was extended by good old COVID-19. But I'm healthy now and back in the vintner's room here at Nicholson Ranch Winery in Sonoma. It's after hours. Let's talk. Episode 56 with my guest. He is a Texas native who spent his formative years playing competitive tennis all over the world. He spent some time in college in both Oklahoma and Michigan. He even managed a golf course at one point. But now, he is the director of Napa Valley Vineyard Operations for Enterprise Vineyards. Let's find out what that means. Alex Brown is here. Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Hi, Mike.
Hello. Welcome back to the winery.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? The Laredo shout out.
Yeah?
I've played there.
You played tennis there?
Yeah. And I've been to Nuevo Laredo,
which is nearby.
The other side of the border.
Oh, yeah, Laredo's on the border. I was reading something about it. They have some huge celebration every year for George Washington's birthday.
Really?
And I don't really understand why. But apparently there's something that... There's some connection to George Washington. I was gonna include that in the shout out, but I ran out of time. Let's talk about vineyard management. A lot of people don't know this. They drink wine. They assume wineries make wine from grapes that they grow. That is not necessarily the case. It is here at Nicholson Ranch, but that's an exception. But the grapes are grown in these big vineyards. And sometimes the guy that owns the vineyard is not employing the people who manage the vineyard. There are people that do that, and that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
Kind of explain how it all works.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways to go about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially out here, there's obviously very wealthy people in San Francisco who have vacation homes with properties.
Okay.
And they love wine. They love staring at a beautifully groomed vineyard.
Let's just buy a house with a vineyard. Won't that be nice?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now we have a vineyard. What do we do with it?
Yeah. And that's where we come into play.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we manage some vineyards and sell all the fruit. And then we also operate as like the quote unquote estate farmers for certain estates. A bunch of the vineyards that I manage are going to various wineries, 36 clients or something.
Right. So there's a lot of big wineries, not big wineries. There's a lot of big vineyards that sell fruit to multiple wineries.
Right.
You just see it on the bottle. Oh, this is from this vineyard. It's a single vineyard wine from this vineyard. Oh, they make one too. Oh, they make one too. That must be a pretty big vineyard. Then you have some of the boutiques, some of the smaller house vineyards.
Yeah, definitely.
Those people that own the house, they just sell the fruit. You give them some money back.
Yeah. But usually the estate farm stuff is also, I own a house, but I also own a winery.
Right. Sure. Of course. Why?
Because why not?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah. Tell me about the weather this summer. Tell me about the vintage. What do you know about 2024? What can we expect in a few years when those bottles start hitting the store shelf?
It's been an interesting year, to say the least.
Why is that?
There was 100-degree days for pretty much all of June or July.
Right.
It really sped things up in the vineyard, and now we're starting to see things chill out a bit, but next week it's supposed to get hot again. We're kind of getting into the swing of picking, starting to pick, looking at historical dates. We're a little bit earlier, some spots 3 weeks earlier than others.
Right.
And so the start of the season was beautiful.
Is it my imagination, or did things start a little bit late this year as opposed to last year where everything started like a month late?
Oh, yeah. But you have to take into consideration how much damn rain we've seen in the last 2 years.
Right.
Ambient soil temperatures keep things cooler in the winter. It causes a later start to the season. But last year was like an anomaly. I mean, when we were flowering, there wasn't even sun for 3 weeks. And so we saw a lot of shatter and things got crazy.
Can you break that down a little bit? Because people listening to this podcast don't know what that is.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Break it down.
Yeah, so grapevines are both male and female plants, so therefore
easy now.
You don't need a male plant to pollinate the female
They're
plant.
Self-pollinating.
Exactly.
I know this about grapevines.
Yeah, so
people ask about bees. Do you guys keep bees? And I'm like, we don't need bees. We have grapes, and they're self-pollinating.
But you should have bees.
No, bees are amazing.
It's the future of the world. But anyway, back to flowering.
The children were the future of the world.
Well, that too. As long as they've got the right mindset.
Can't have children without the birds and the bees. Right?
But yeah, so like flowering is the stage where you're going to get your fruit set from. Okay. And there's a lot of delicacy in that stage.
Because they are literal flowers that will eventually turn into those tiny little clusters of grapes.
Exactly.
And if the rain comes along and goes onto that flower, it's like, sorry, it's gone.
Even wind.
Try again next year.
If it's windy enough, it'll knock flowers off.
So rain at the wrong time in the spring.
Yep.
Bad.
And that's what year are we in? 2024?
This is 2024.
23, that's what happened. Yes. This year, fruit set was great for the most part. I mean, we did get a lot of wind in certain areas, but I mean, for the most part, fruit set was great. The Grenache is insane in most of our vineyards, and it's kind of scary because Grenache is huge berries.
Oh, but I didn't know that. I've never seen a cluster of Grenache.
Yeah, it can get really tight.
How much Grenache is over in Napa? Because you're the Napa guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's growing in Napa.
So I don't know statistically how many acres are covered in Grenache, but
so just like rank it for me. Cab is number one.
Oh, I mean, it's a grain of sand on a beach.
Sure.
In terms of what's planted.
Okay.
Let's be real.
Yeah. There's a ton of Cab.
Yeah.
You got Merlot, you got Cab Franc. Chardonnay.
Sauvignon
South
Blanc.
End, Sauvignon Blanc, of course. But as far as reds go.
Oh, it'd be point.
It's still a tiny bit. Okay.
But
right now,
something percent.
The Grenache is impressing you the most.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
like
we grow a little bit of Grenache, and for one of our clients, it's just to go to a rosé program.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then we've got it at one of our properties in Oakville. It was an experiment that ended up working out.
Okay.
I mean, if you take into consideration the actual climate of Napa, I think that it's better suited these days, given what changes are happening.
Global warming.
Exactly.
The planet's cooking. Hey, let's plant Grenache.
Yeah. Why not plant warm grape varieties?
Yes.
Which is why I brought one of the wines that I did, because I think it's an interesting conversation piece, but we'll get to that later.
So back to the original concept of this question. Right now,
it's going to be great.
We're talking here about mid-September, mid-September for harvesting. Right now, the sparkling wine people are harvesting already because they don't need as much sugar. They need more acidity.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Right now, you think when harvest comes, is it one of those years people are going to say, oh, yeah, this is a good year? Yeah.
I truly think so. I think it's been one of the more stable vintages in terms of weather, aside from the little blips that we've had.
Right.
For the most part, we've been just right on par with some of the better vintages that we've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, it gives me high hope. Grapes are sizing up.
What was the last really good vintage in Napa, do you think? 19? 21?
Yeah, 18 or 19. I think 19 was great because it had followed 18. I won't get into the weeds about it, but pretty much if you have a great year the year before, the wines typically reflect that the year after. You're actually, physiologically speaking, you're setting up the vine for the year following.
Okay. Right.
And 18 was just an incredible vintage. I like to say it's because it was my first year of living out here, but nobody believes me.
There might be some validity to that, but you cannot fact check it. So the 24s are going to be good. The Grenache is off the hook. So write that down. 2024 Napa Valley Grenache, if you find them
if you can't find them
3 or 4 years from now. They might all be made into rosé. Who knows?
You couldn't afford that in Napa.
No. Oh, to make rosé. It's true. It's true. People say rosé all day, and I'm like, yeah, until the bill comes, and then you're like, we need to go for another few days with the rosé.
I'm not going to pay that price to make a rosé on the fruit.
No. All right, let's bounce around here. Remind me when you worked at this winery. Alex worked here for a short time. Was it pre-podcast?
It was pre-pandemic.
I know you were here at the beginning of COVID because remember we had planned to go out to dinner on the Monday that turned out to be March 16th, just the day after the announcement came on the prior Sunday that things were going to change a little bit, but that wasn't going to happen until Tuesday.
And so we went to Oso.
We're like, we're still on for dinner on Monday.
Hell yeah,
so Alex and I went out to this amazing dinner at this place in Sonoma that I love, Oso, O-S-O.
Little tapas bar.
He brought another wine. I brought a wine, and we had an amazing dinner sitting at the bar. Little did we know that would be like the last restaurant meal for everybody for several months.
Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah. And how much longer did you work here after that? I don't remember.
I think that I left in July.
Okay. So it was before the podcast came.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's the way dinner works, when you go out. I bring a nice bottle, you bring a nice bottle. And then we have a great conversation over 2 nice bottles of wine, which basically is the concept of the podcast.
I mean,
it was just sort of a warm-up for the
isn't
podcast.
That what wine's all about, though?
That's what wine's all about.
Yeah. Sharing it with friends, having conversation, making connection.
Right.
Not being on your phones.
Exactly.
Pretty much everything that's wrong with the next generation coming up.
We're going to talk about the next generation in a little bit. But first, I want to give you your very own set of Tall Mike Wine podcast coasters. Those are for you. Take home and set your wine glass.
Now I can just look at you and
you can look at me.
Reminisce.
Exactly. There's Mike sniffing the wine. If you would like your very own set of Tall Mike Wine podcast coasters, you may email me at tallmikewine@gmail.com, and I'll send you a stack. You have to give me your address. If you're a little nervous about that, well, I'm sorry.
I like the water-painted wine stain on it.
Amanda, who used to work here in the office, she designed the back of the coaster that has the wine stain on it. And Amanda is one of those genius people.
I thought you had given me a used coaster when I first saw the backside.
It's printed on all of them. It's not stained. All right, there's a couple of bottles of wine in front of us. We are sipping and swirling and sniffing and doing that wine thing that we do. And now we're going to talk about the first wine, which I brought. First wine is a little bit interesting because it is a Nebbiolo. Okay, Nebbiolo, great. So it's from Italy. It's a Barolo. It's Italian. No, it's not. It's actually from California. And with the help of Deepak, who owns this winery, we deduced today that Nebbiolo is in California, but not very much. There might be 100 acres. And a lot of it's growing down south on the Central Coast, where this one comes from. This one comes from the Santa Maria Valley appellation. It is a Nebbiolo from 2018. Now, the winery, this is a great story. There's some history here. The winery is Clendenon Family Vineyards, which sounds like, okay, who are these people? Clendenon is a guy Jim Clendenon, who started making Pinot down there, Santa Barbara, in the 80s, when Pinot was like, nobody was thinking about Pinot. He founded a winery you might have heard of. It's called Bon Clément.
Ooh, R.I.P. Jim.
Yeah. And then Jim started making other wines that maybe weren't going to be so well thought of or popular or mainstream, and he founded his Clendenon family vineyards. And so he started making things like Petit Verdot, Nebbiolo, and he founded that in, I think, the year 2000. And then, sadly, in 2021, Jim Clendenon passed away unexpectedly at a fairly young age. I don't think he was even 70 yet.
I think it was complications with
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I just heard at some point that he had died, and I just remembered seeing him at a tasting one time at one of these big, industry things.
Yeah.
And you look across the room, and there's this guy, and you're like, is he from that band from the 1980s? Because he had the hair, man.
He definitely fits into the Grateful Dead group.
He had hair metal band hair.
100%.
Just amazing. And he was a big personality.
When you think of what a California hippie would look like, he kind of looked like he had grown out of it, but still...
No. He still had the hair.
Yeah.
He still had the mane of beautiful hair. It was all turning white as he got older, but yeah.
Have you ever had those wines, the Bon Clément?
Oh yeah, when I was managing restaurants, those Pinots are like
great.
You got to have them on your list because they're delicious and they're not that expensive.
They're a bargain, relatively speaking, for an everyday drinker.
But sadly, he passed away, and his son Knox Clendenon is making the wines with another guy. What's that guy's name? It's on here somewhere. I can put it in the show notes. Okay, so here are some stats. The bottle says Clendenon Family Vineyards 2018, Santa Maria Valley, Nebbiolo, and then there's some Italian words. Bricco, Buon Natale. Do you know what that means?
Merry Christmas.
Exactly. Buon Natale means Merry Christmas. Bricco means jug.
Jug of Merry Christmas.
So this is your Merry Christmas jug.
I mean...
Merry Christmas jug. And,
I drink this on Christmas.
Like I said, it's produced down south of the Bay Area. So there's an area between San Francisco and Paso Robles. No, it's out further than Paso Robles. It's down on the way to Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara, right? Yeah.
It's Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Valley. Yeah. Kind of in that whole area. But that's where most of the Nebbiolo is.
Yeah.
According to Deepak today. Yeah. We talked about it a lot.
I can think of 2 other vineyards that I know that grow Nebbiolo.
There's probably a little bit in Napa somewhere.
I think there's one. I can't remember the name of the producer, but yeah, they focus primarily on Italian grape varieties.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few of those around here.
Yeah.
There's one here in
some people that are just too stubborn, and I love it, not to go to Pinot or Cab.
No, they're like, we're from the old country.
Yeah.
We're going to do this.
That's the best part about the old vine vineyards in Russian River is like people know what grape varieties are planted there, but they always just say red table wine.
It's a field blend.
Or Zinfandel.
It's a field blend. We went out into the field and we picked the grapes and we made a blend.
It's always the Italians too.
All right, so here are the technical details on this wine. I've already told you about the appellation, Santa Maria Valley. It's 100% Nebbiolo. They aged it not 2 years, not 3 years, 4 years in the big ones, Hungarian oak 500-liter barrels.
Hogsheads, I believe that they...
I think so, yeah. It's double-sized. It's 500 liters as opposed to 255 liters.
Yeah.
So they're big barrels, 4 years. But, Nebbiolo, it starts out like... It's going to suck your tongue. It's going to suck your tongue out because it's so tannic.
Just think about Piedmont. To be considered Barbaresco, it's 3 years.
Piemonte.
Barolo's 5.
Right.
So they're right in that sweet spot.
They have rules. The tasting notes from the winery. Every winery has a different style when they write tasting notes for their wines. This is kind of fun. They're trying to set a scene here.
They always do.
The purity of this wine complements the mix of floral and berry aromas jumping from the glass. The concentration continues in the flavor profile. The strong acid and moderate tannins balance and support the less assertive flavors. Really? Wow. They're giving props to the less assertive flavors. They're there. Less assertive flavors, which are still developing as the wine ages. Secondary aromas of violets, lavender, and anise are just starting to develop. A big mouthful unveils dried cherries balanced nicely with perfect acid and mellow tannins. That took a lot out of me reading that. My coworker, Dana, who was here with me all day, I gave her a little splash of this before she left. I said, you got to write tasting notes. She said, oh, it's so good. But she wrote, mild, soft flavors, leather, rose, unripened strawberry, cherry, berries, red berries. And then didn't she say, I could just drink this all fucking day?
Yeah, literally. That was what she said as she walked out the door.
It's really good. Tell me your thoughts, your impressions.
I love Nebbiolo as a grape when it's done well. And I mean, I think this is a fantastic wine.
It's phenomenal. It is one of those things that you see Nebbiolo, and I've had this in my wine rack for maybe 6 months because it's a 2018. I recently got it.
Yeah, it's a baby.
And when I bought it, I thought, oh, I'm going to age this for a long time. And I did a little research on this bottle, and it was like, it's not one of those 20-year Nebbiolos.
Right. We've got California sunshine.
I feel like this is time to drink this wine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to develop into something different. I think it's delicious right now, and I don't think it's going to go forever and ever and ever. So
right.
I'm actually glad I decided I'm going to bring this because it's interesting, and I think it might be a little too early to open it. But now that I've tasted it, I'm like, it's time.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
This is not one of the big Barolos from Italy that you're like, oh, at 15 years, this will be just perfect.
Also, in Italy, specifically with Barolos, they've gone through like these ebbs and flows of, I mean, it's similar to here with the Parkerization of wine. It's like they've done what's fashionable. And so you get some of these wines that just have so much oak thrown at them that they aren't drinkable for 30 years.
Right.
And then by then it's like everyone talks about the mustiness and all that hoopla.
You know, there are traditions in wine of saving your wine, putting it in a cellar. But there's also a lot of people who just want to buy it and drink it. And they have money to spend on the expensive wines.
Yeah.
And so some people are making their wines that are a little more accessible at a younger age, which I think is fine, as long as it's still delicious. I'm getting my phone out so I can take some pictures of these bottles.
When I was in Australia, we were just starting to grow Nebbiolo, and it was really exciting. I mean,
which part of Australia?
I was in the Yarra Valley, so just northeast of Melbourne.
So not the Barossa.
No, it's way too hot there.
Barossa is my favorite.
Way too hot there to grow Nebbiolo.
I like those big black Shiraz wines.
I bet.
Super extracted.
I can't do it.
You take one sip and your tongue turns black.
It's a meal.
It is a meal.
Yeah.
I like it. I like to drink my calories, Alex. I'm taking pictures of the wine. Those pictures will be on the Instagram. Now, pick up your glass, and I'm going to take a picture of you.
Oh, God.
Alex will be on the Instagram, too. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram, it's at Tall Mike Wine. Look at him. He looks like a guy who spends time in a vineyard all day, right? Driving a truck.
Just sunbeaten.
Just driving a truck, yeah. Do you have a farmer stand?
Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't believe.
Well, you're wearing a long sleeve shirt today.
Yeah.
Because today was a little chillier.
Well, no, this is my vineyard outfit aside from the shorts. And
you don't want to get
Birkenstocks.
too burnt up.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
You keep yourself stocked with sunscreen.
Usually I've got the hood on.
Wow.
Got the long sleeve shirt with the hood on.
People are like, who's the guy on the hood? If you're enjoying the podcast, I'm glad. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe on whichever podcast player you use. And also get yourself caught up. There are 3 years worth of conversations and wine to absorb. Start downloading. Feel free to binge. Oh, and if you want to help me keep the podcast commercial free, you can become a sponsor for just a few dollars a month, just like Derek in Michigan did recently. Thank you, Derek. Click the support the show link in the show notes or go to tallmikewine.com. And thank you in advance. I sent Derek some coasters. It's kind of fun.
What part of Michigan then?
I don't remember the town.
Come on.
I don't remember the town. But I have a lot of people in the suburbs of Detroit.
Okay.
Like Warren, Michigan is big.
Really?
Yeah.
That was the opposite side of the state from where I live.
Oh, for college?
Yeah.
What college was it?
Ferris State. Took me a while to remember.
Ferris.
Yeah,
like
Ferris State.
Bueller?
Go Bulldogs.
Tell me about tennis.
What do you want to know?
When you first started working here,
that pickleball is going to be the death of tennis, or
are they adjusting the courts at the All England Lawn and Tennis Club for pickleball? The next Wimbledon.
Bury me in a shallow grave when they do that.
So when you first started working here, you would talk about you'd been to this country, you've been to this country, like, oh, I played tennis in those countries. So you were a competitive tennis player. How did that all happen for you?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but grew up country club brat. And before we lived in Pennsylvania for a brief period of time, and before we moved back for high school, or my parents were like, you got to figure out a sport you're going to play. I was like, well, my best friend back home in Texas, knowing that we were going back, played tennis. Okay. And I made it my life's goal to kick his ass, which eventually happened. I picked it up in 8th grade and never looked back until post-college because I just can't play anymore.
Because you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You got hurt.
Yeah.
You didn't hurt yourself. I mean, maybe you did.
No.
Maybe you're into self-harm.
I probably did without caring for my body, but yeah. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. I mean, it took me...
So you got really good really fast.
I did. Okay. Yeah. Surprising.
So you played in high school? Were you like on the high school team?
I was.
You were like the ace?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you got out of high school?
Yeah.
And did you play in college, for college, or did you just go on a circuit of some sort?
All the above.
Okay.
I wouldn't say circuit. I was more so just trying to eke out some sort of living, I guess you could say. Okay. And towards the end of my high school career, got to travel extensively throughout Europe, which was awesome. I kind of regret it, though, because I was so young that I didn't appreciate the travel. I didn't appreciate where I was at.
Yeah, but it sets the table for you to go back there.
100%.
Right?
But when am I going to find the time? I'm a farmer, Mike.
You will. You're a farmer. It's called...
Dormancy is when I go to...
It's called the off-season.
Yeah.
And the great thing about you being a farmer is the off-season for you is the off-season for tourism in all those countries.
I don't know if you know much about farming, but we don't make a lot of money to travel.
I didn't know that.
Not to get dark.
You burst my bubble. I thought all those farmers were independently wealthy.
Oh, yeah, sure. If only that were the case.
If only that were the case. All right, we're tasting the second wine now. This is a wine that Alex brought with him. I like the name at the top. Raspón. Is that the name of the winery?
No, so it's
all right.
Sotelo. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the first name. I didn't do my homework like you did, Mike. Right. But I do know a little bit about the guy and his wife who makes the wine.
Amador County, up in the hills.
Yeah.
Up in the mountains of Sierra Nevada.
Amador
County.
He's either the assistant or now the full-time winemaker at Scribe, but this is like his true passion project.
Oh, Scribe is a winery that's just down the street from where we are right now.
But
who's the winemaker?
I think his name's Daniel Sotelo. Like I said, I only know of the wines, and I think know
that name rings
who the people are.
I think that name rings a bell.
But yeah, he Spanish heritage, and so he makes purely Spanish grape varieties
in this particular iteration.
Yes, and
Orixe Sotelo. Am I saying it right?
Wines are, I believe so. I know the last name for sure, but I just think it's cool to see somebody doing something different. I mean, obviously, it's not grown in either of the two big counties for wine.
Tempranillo. Tempranillo is the grape that this wine is made from. And yes, it's typically found in the big regions of Spain, in Rioja, and Ribera del Duero. You like the way I say that?
I do. Especially how your facial...
I'm enunciating.
If this was on film...
It's just really ugly to watch me speak sometimes because I enunciate so hard that I make faces. And I gesticulate a lot.
Have you ever heard the joke, face for radio?
Yeah. Oh,
that was like the visual cues that you were giving with how you pronounced.
This is a Tempranillo. And like I said, it's the main grape in Spain. There's not a lot of it in Napa or Sonoma, and it needs a lot of heat, right?
It does.
So, go up to Amador County, up in the mountains, closer to the sun.
Exactly.
Where it's hot. Now, this wine is, wow, it's so fruity.
Well, we should start by saying...
And it's so fruity because of the way they make the wine, and it's one of my favorite things to talk about on the podcast because it almost sounds dirty. Carbonic maceration.
It's mainly the last word, right?
The whole thing. They found a way to do it carbonically.
Yeah, I mean, what's not Beaujolais? That's like...
Yeah, that's what they do in Beaujolais, France. And they want to make a super fruity wine, right?
Exactly.
And
something you drink young, it's fresh.
You're more of an expert than I am. Why don't you explain very briefly carbonic maceration, what that means in a winemaking sense for the layman?
For the layman, you deprive your fermentation of oxygen.
Okay.
And therefore, it creates fermentation inside the actual berry, forcing them to burst once the pressure builds up. And the burst of energy is essentially what gives the wine its extremely vibrant, fruity characteristics. Sometimes you'll taste them and they almost taste like a bit spritzy.
This one does.
Yeah. And it just has that freshness. You drink them young. If you want to impress some friends, just tell them, oh, this wine was made using intracellular fermentation.
Man, I hope you're writing this down. This is all good stuff. It's a Tempranillo carbonic maceration. Do you know if it goes into a barrel?
Oh, yeah.
Probably goes into a barrel for a short time, but it's not oaky.
No, all of his wines are neutral oak, I do believe.
Okay, so it maybe a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That softens it up a little bit. But no, this wine is just like, pow, fruit flavor. It's like a raspberry, I don't want to say sorbet. It's more like a raspberry compote. You know, like if you took the raspberries and just cooked them down and then took all the sugar out of them, because there's no, this is a dry wine. It's not sweet at all. But it's so incredibly fruity and so incredibly fresh.
Have you ever had Kirsch?
Yeah.
The fruit?
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
Okay.
Like that kind of...
I think yes.
Because it's similar to raspberry, where it's got like that tartness and that freshness. But yeah.
Or currant.
Yeah. I feel like when people talk about currant in the wine industry, they're always talking about these richer wines.
Right.
They've almost got like that sappy molasses.
Yeah, because cab is always currant.
Yeah. I don't think that that's doing currant a justice.
Right.
And I don't think that that's...
No, this is like just a bead of straight fruit flavor, like unadulterated.
But there is that like tannin structure of the...
A little bit. I'm not getting a lot, though.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a lot.
But you can see how the Tempranillo is still on the back of it.
Let's see. What else can we find out about this bottle from looking at the back? Not a lot, really. Tempranillo, Amador County, 2023. So this is really like... This did not spend a year in the barrel because it would still be in the barrel.
I guarantee you they released it like on the same premise of Beaujolais Nouveau.
Oh.
Where it's like minimal time.
Celebrating the harvest. Here's a brand new wine right after harvest.
You drink it right away.
Congratulations and enjoy.
You know, we never talked about the Nebbiolo tasting notes aside from Erica.
Aside from Dana's notes?
Dana.
Then let me hear it.
Cherry cola.
Cherry cola?
I think that Tempranillo or Nebbiolo is like a good representation. It always sort of has that like...
Cherry Coke.
Yeah. Not to get sidetracked.
No, I think it's great.
It's got like more dusty tannin.
I got a lot of leather, but light though. You think leather, it's like, oh, it's this big, heavy, leathery cigar wine. But no, it's leather, but like... A light leather jacket.
Suave.
Maybe just a light scarf made of leather.
Exactly. Like a cashmere scarf, but with leather.
I've got a visual now.
Both of these wines are great.
You know, Alex, I've got a big birthday coming up in a few weeks. It starts with a 6.
40?
It starts with a 6. It starts with a 6. Can you believe it? And as I get older, I find it harder and harder to stay relevant in the world. Can you relate to that? Because we talked about how the younger people, are like, one way I like to attempt that is by keeping track of pop culture.
You come to the wrong source for pop culture.
No. Wait. How old are you?
I just turned 30.
Oh, perfect.
Dirty 30.
Perfect. So you're millennial?
Technically.
The young millennial.
Yeah, 95 is the cutoff.
The young millennial.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're the older millennials that are totally different than you are. Right. Mm-hmm. It's so funny how we get locked into these generations. Because I am right in the middle. There's this little wedge where not too many babies were born when the baby boom died down.
Yeah.
Before the early baby boomers started having babies that turned into Gen X. So I'm right in the middle.
Yeah. My wife's parents are the same. Actually, my parents are the same.
Really? Like mid-60s?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I was listening to the New Yorker podcast the other day because that's what 60-year-old guys do. Two reporters, probably way younger than me, were discussing the song of the summer. Do you listen to music?
Sure.
And I remember the days when I used to really know the song and the songs every summer because I used to play them on the radio. I was the guy.
I know.
And now I hear these songs listed and I'm like so out of the loop. So let me run you by the songs and you tell me if you've heard of any of them. Okay. This is the list from two reporters from the New Yorker. One reporter is Khalifa Saneh, and one reporter is Amanda Petrosic. And they were talking, about this like it was news. Like, oh, this is important stuff. The song of the summer. What's the song of the summer? So there's a song called Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter.
Nope.
That was easy. How about Charlie XCX?
Nope.
That's a song called 360 from a much buzzed album called Brat.
Yeah.
Do you know what Brat is?
I don't think that I would be listening to an album called Brat.
How about Shabuzi's A Bar Song? No? Are you feeling old? You're exactly half my age. And I'm making you feel old. Okay, here's another one. Carol G. And it's in Spanish. It's called Si antes te hubiera conocido.
Absolutely not. I've heard of none of these.
It's so funny that so I printed this out because this is from the New Yorker, and then I googled songs of the summer, and I got this whole big long list from Rolling Stone, songs of the summer, and there was Charlie XCX again with a different song.
I don't listen to the radio
called Von Dutch.
I choose who I listen to.
Kendrick Lamar.
Nope.
Not Like Us.
I've heard it.
Not Like Us. Oh, there's one. You got one. That's awesome. There's Sabrina Carpenter again.
Can't say I've listened to the whole song.
Somebody named Chapel Roan. Do you know that name?
No.
Called Good Luck, Babe. That's the name of the song. There's Post Malone. Now, I've heard of Post Malone. Featuring Morgan Wallen.
Okay.
And the song is called I Had Some Help.
Purely because of my wife.
Okay. Oh, Jen.
Yes.
Perfect. There's Shabuzi again with the bar song.
You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head.
I just wanted to share this with you because I feel so irrelevant at this point.
Wow. For as much time as I spend in my truck, because we live in Katati and I work in Napa.
That's a commute.
I work on the Silverado Trail side, so it's even more of a commute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts.
Oh, that brings me to my next thing. Have you been a guest on podcasts before?
Nope.
This is your first time?
It is.
How do you like it?
It made me a little nervous at first, if I'm being honest.
I know, but you came here.
Which is crazy because we used to work together.
We used to work together, and you got here, and I gave you a big hug. And then we started drinking wine.
Yeah, that might have helped.
That's gonna bring the anxiety level down.
Yeah.
Just a touch. Any people thinking of starting a podcast, I would say you don't have to have a wine podcast, but having wine while you're doing the podcast makes it much more fun.
It does,
and everybody gets relaxed.
Yeah.
What are you listening to?
What am I listening
to? What are your favorite podcasts?
I listen to The Daily.
That's one of the biggest podcasts. If you Google like top downloaded podcasts,
some of
and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll like 27,000 pages, you get to mine. And you go back to the top. The Daily is in the top like 5.
I believe it. I mean,
it's like in the top 5 because it's news.
It's
the New York Times.
Yeah, New York Times. Hello.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I listen to a lot of soil science podcasts, and I don't.
What's the name of one of them? Because I hope they have clever names.
The No-Till Growers podcast.
Ooh, the No-Till Growers podcast has a new episode. I got to get to that. No-Till. Wait, what's that about?
It's about no-till agriculture.
But does that mean
they have guests on? We
have this big swath of land, and your first impulse, if you want to plant something in that land, is to dig up the soil and till it.
Exactly.
They're not doing that?
They're not doing that.
Oh.
Yeah.
My God.
I mean, so...
This is cutting edge.
Yeah. It's so you aren't disturbing what little, if you're in California, what little organic matter you have in your soil.
Well, and the nutrients, the natural stuff. You want some more wine?
I would love some.
Which one do you want?
I will revisit the
This is the moment of truth right here. He's going to go back to the Nebbiolo.
I just love Nebbiolo. When it's done well, it's done well.
I like to say it's Pinot Noir's weird uncle.
It really is.
Because it's light like a Pinot Noir. It's a light color like a Pinot Noir. But there's so much weird stuff going on.
You taste it. There's tannin structure that you weren't expecting based on the fruit characters.
Yeah.
And there's just all around intrigue, which is why I love Nebbiolo.
I'm just sipping the Tempranillo, the carbonic maceration, and just thinking I should do some of this at home.
Actually, you know what? I did. But I made it a carbonic Blaufränkisch.
Blaufränkisch.
When I was German. In Australia, we had some nursery vines, and there was 12 vines, and we picked them all, and then literally hand destemmed, but keeping the berries intact, put it in a 10-gallon bucket, and let it ferment, and the wine was fucking awesome.
And you finally got to drink it when? A few months later?
You know what's sad?
What?
I've tried I tried when it was almost dry. I tried it, and then we bottled it after it went dry. I didn't have room in my suitcase when I moved back, and it's a pain in the ass to get wines that are unlabeled back from Australia. So.
Sure. Back to the Tempranillo. I get all this nice red fruit.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also flowers, like violets. It's really floral.
But it's quite floral.
Delicious.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a new podcast hosted by Ted Danson. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea.
Okay. That's great.
I live in a bubble, Mike.
This is a nice generational shift here. Ted Danson was the star of a sitcom in the 1980s called Cheers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where everybody knows your name.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Ted Danson hosts a podcast called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, and sometimes Woody Harrelson is his co-host.
Are you a big Frasier guy?
Not as much.
Oh.
So Where Everybody Knows Your Name, of course, is part of the theme song for Cheers, and now Ted Danson, the star of Cheers, has a podcast called Where Everybody Knows Your Name. Get it?
I do get it.
Okay, good. Sometimes Woody is the co-host, so it's celebs chatting with other celebs, and I love a good conversation about showbiz. I was just at the gym yesterday listening to Ted Danson talk to Jeff Goldblum. And Jeff Goldblum is like a live wire, man. Wow, he pretty much took over the podcast episode.
Oh, I bet.
He was the guest, but he did all the talking. Yeah. And Ted would have to say, I need to talk now.
Do you remember he played at what's that concert that happens over in Napa?
Bottle Rock?
Bottle Rock.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it was just his name, and everybody was like, what the hell is he going to do?
Right.
And he came out and played with an orchestra.
He has a full jazz band.
Yeah.
Yeah. He talked about it on the podcast.
I believe it.
Yeah. Also, a friend of mine up in Seattle and his friend have a new wellness podcast called Unfamously Unwell. See what I did there? One podcast with famous people and one with unfamous people.
Does that just mean that they're poor, or?
It just means they're not well-known people. They're just people like me who started a podcast.
Because I could start a podcast based on that.
It's Kyle, who's actually from Sonoma, and his co-host Caleb. And they chat about their lives, and they go deep into the topic of self-care and wellness and everything else. It's a lot of talking. I should mention, in case you need to know, Kyle and Caleb are homosexuals. And, saying that, I think will make maybe a few people just be like, okay, I don't need to listen to that. But it might be like, for some people, it might be like, oh, I got to check this out, right? It's actually kind of interesting. It's fun. Unfamously Unwell. Which is kind of a fun name for me.
I do like that name.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are unwell.
Oh, man. It's got to be pretty much everybody. If you don't think you're unwell,
whether it's mentally or physically,
right,
emotionally,
these guys they dive into you can tell they've both read a lot of the books about like self-improvement and what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I haven't read any of those books.
Are they big holistic?
I don't know any of those authors. They're always talking about like psychology and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know any of that stuff you're talking about.
I listen to a similar podcast as well.
What's it called?
The Rich Roll.
What's it called?
The Rich Roll podcast.
The Ritual?
The Rich Roll.
Rich Roll?
Like I'm rich as in wealth.
Oh.
And roll like as in a bike wheel or something.
Oh. I thought you were talking about Rick Roll.
Rick Roll?
Rick Roll. You know what that is?
No.
You send somebody a link to something and you say, this is important, you should watch this. And it turns out to be a link of Rick Astley singing, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. And
never gonna come around.
Exactly. That's called being Rickrolled.
And hurt you.
You've been fooled into clicking on a link with Rick Astley.
Does it at least show the video of him dancing?
Yeah, he's like doing his shoulders and his hips.
80s, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
that's like
it's like the definition.
87, 88, Rick Astley, pretty much a one-hit wonder.
Oh, there were so many one-hit wonders in the 80s.
He had such a beautiful voice, though. Like deep, rich voice.
You could say that about all the one-hit wonders in the 80s.
Pretty much. All right, is there anything else you need to say while you're here on the podcast? Because it's almost time to end the podcast.
Drink more wine and come visit Sonoma and Napa.
Yeah, for sure. If you've never been to Sonoma and Napa, you need to come. And if you come to Nicholson Ranch and you're here on the right day, I will be here.
I mean, obviously come for the wine, but I feel like it's so underappreciated throughout the country, California. The sheer beauty of it all. You don't just have to come to drink the wine. An hour north of us they're the tallest redwoods in the state.
Right.
The oldest redwoods in the state, some of.
Or we have the coast.
Yeah.
Not everybody in the country has a coast on an ocean.
Have you ever been out to Point Reyes?
Yes.
I
live in Marin County. That's where Point Reyes is.
Yeah. Have you been to Mirror Woods?
I have.
Yeah. People have this connotation of what San Francisco is. And yeah, sure. It's not what I remember it as a kid when we used to travel out here.
San Francisco has changed.
But it's just an incredible pace of life, a way of living.
Right? I tell people that come here to Nicholson Ranch and taste wine, they sit on those couches out there on the courtyard and they get all relaxed. And then they'll like really just crunch down into the couch. And I say, you are about to slip into what we like to call the Sonoma coma.
Sonoma time.
You're here, you're relaxing to the point where it's Sonoma coma.
It's been like,
I think some people are worried about California because they watch TV and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to California and Nancy Pelosi's going to be there going, nah, 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 nah. No, Nancy Pelosi's a nice lady. She's well dressed. She's nothing to worry about. She just wants to help you.
I mean, once you're here, it's like, why wouldn't you come and revisit?
Because you can't afford to stay here too long.
Oh, I mean, that's like that is a whole nother podcast. It's just,
we're living the life.
Blessed, fortunate.
I totally agree. I'm going to read the credits now. Okay.
Goodbye.
You ready? The Tall Mike Wine podcast was conceived and is written, produced, edited, and maintained by yours truly. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, a comment, if you just want to say hello, I'm here. Request a set of your very own Tall Mike Wine coasters. Drop me an email. That's tallmikewine@gmail.com. Check out behind the scenes on my Instagram. That's @tallmikewine. You'll see Alex and the wines we're sipping. You'll see what I'm up to when I'm not podcasting. Not everything, of course.
Still posting food?
Oh, yeah. You want to sponsor the podcast with a few bucks every month? It helps to offset the costs of production and archiving. I really only need, $3. Maybe $5. Okay, maybe $10. Every month. From a few people. And then the podcast pays for itself and I don't have to put commercials on. Because commercials are like, oh, what a buzzkill. Alex, thank you for hanging out.
Of course, Mike.
I'm Mike Stone, a.k.a. Tall Mike Wine. Keep swirling, keep sniffing, keep sipping. Cheers.
buy wine at the grocery store.